The AP Top 25 came out. We have week 5 football for college football coming up this weekend. I'm going to go over that and more in just a second. Hey, I'm Brian. I'm not Bobby Durkins, at least not here. Hit the subscribe button, turn on the notifications. That's the easiest way to support the channel. Also, it's free. So just take your thumb, hit that subscribe button, and boom, it happens. Also, if you want to support the channel on a monthly basis, I have a $3 tier and a $5 tier. It's so easy, you won't even notice it. Also, if you're on an iPhone, you may not see the join button there, but you can join on another device. Also, you can offer a super thanks here in the comments section. I do appreciate it. So, a little over an hour ago, I started this video, and then I got a text from a friend of mine or my cousin going, he is a friend, but he's also my cousin. He texted me and he said, dude, I can't hear you. And then I had the comment section turned off. I had it turned off so I can pay attention while I am talking, because I go back and watch some of my videos and I watch what I say, when I say it, my pauses, and I know exactly what's going on. I'm trying to read the comments section all while I'm trying to talk, and that doesn't make sense. So I'm going to quickly say hello to a few people. Then I'm going to turn off the comments section and talk about the AP Top 25, and I'm going to intermingle what's coming up for the team this coming Saturday. So I got Jay Melvin in here. I have Parker Henderson, my buddy. He is a Bobby Durkins, not Bobby Durkins, monthly subscriber and member. So I appreciate that, Parker. Slim Shady Canes, yes, my microphone works. Also, thank you for the $3 super chat earlier to tell me that it was not working. Also, Jonathan Benton, yes, I have audio. Midlands Directory, what is up? I was watching the Coastal game the other night. I thought about you, I almost messaged you, but yeah, that did not turn out well, needless to say. So let's dive into this week's top 25. Now, of course, as I said, it came out yesterday, and I would have loved to have done a video yesterday to talk specifically about this. I ended up doing a video talking about Clemson lost. Now what for the team? I ticked some people off in that one. That's just like the new thing. I didn't even think it was tick off worthy. But anyway, let's talk about the AP Top 25. Now, for this week, Georgia is number 1 again. I don't think that we were shocked at that whatsoever. They beat UAB, the Fighting Trent Dilfers. Yes, Trent Dilfer, the former quarterback, won a Super Bowl. He's now the head coach at UAB. Georgia won 49-21. This coming Saturday, they're going to play at Auburn. Now, Hugh Freeze has these boys. He's got his work cut out for him. But if there's anyone who can get them rolling, it's Hugh Freeze. I think Georgia will win that ball game. Next up, number 2 is Michigan. Michigan beat Rutgers this past weekend. They got John Harbaugh back. They're going to play Nebraska this week. Next up, Texas Longhorns. They beat Baylor 38-6. This week they play, believe it or not, a ranked in the top 25, if my memory serves me correct. I'll have to go down here and see. In fact, I'm going to skip ahead and see. Yes, the Kansas Jayhawks are 4-0. They beat BYU this past week. And so this Texas-Kansas game is a top 25 matchup. I know, folks, weird things are happening in college football. I'm going to go ahead and skip through and give you the top 25, and then I'll highlight the games because this is taking a little longer than what I want. Ohio State and Notre Dame played. Notre Dame played a very good game. They lost on the very last play. Ohio State tied it up. They're 4-0. They were 6. Now they're number 4. We know Florida State beat Clemson this past week in overtime, 31-24. They're now 4-0. They did drop, believe it or not. They dropped from 4 to 5. Penn State at 6. Washington Huskies at 7. This week they play Arizona. That'll be interesting. Southern Cal, they beat Arizona State. Arizona State put up a fight, by the way. But they still won. They play Colorado this week on Fox at 12. I'll get to that in just a second. At number 9 is the ones who beat Oregon this past week. And not only beat them, just absolutely shellacked them. Dan Lanning, Oregon Ducks, they're number 9. They play Stanford this week. They play Stanford. The Utah Utes 4-0. They defeated UCLA 14-7. They play this Friday against our former starting quarterback, DJ Uiagalelei, with Oregon State. As I said, this Friday. Notre Dame, they dropped from 9 to 11. So the good thing about the AP, they did not, penalize them for losing at the very last moment. And here's what's interesting about this game. They're going to, what's up next? They're going to play at Duke this Saturday. Notre Dame's going to Duke. That will be their second trip this season already to that Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill area. And we'll move even faster. Alabama Crimson Tide at 12, LSU at 13, Oklahoma at 14, the North Carolina Tar Heels, they're at number 15. Washington State, they're 4-0. They're at number 16. Number 16. Number 17, Duke Blue Devils. That's crazy. Followed by the Miami Hurricanes at 18. Oregon State, they lost by 3 points, so they dropped from 14 to 19. Ole Miss, though they lost to Alabama, they dropped from 15 to 20. Number 21, Tennessee Volunteers, they beat UTSA. It wasn't really a big deal. They play South Carolina this week. That'll be fun. Florida at number 22. Number 23 is Missouri Tigers. Number 24, as I said earlier, Kansas Jayhawks. And number 25, the 4-0 Fresno State Bulldogs. They played Nevada this week. So, what's the big deal about this weekend? And I will tell you this straight up. I'm going to have to chill on Clemson for a little bit as far as my comments for myself. My nerves can't take it anymore. I had my show last night where I talked about Clemson loses, now what? I talked about that earlier. I'll do a preview for the Clemson-Syracuse game. Syracuse, undefeated. They're missing preseason All-ACC tight end Gadsden. They still have Schrader. The game's going to be at Syracuse. Dino Babers always does a very good job for preparing for the Tigers. We'll see. I'll talk about that later. But folks, you need to understand something here. The college football season is now maturing. The cupcake games are starting to fade away. Now, used to, I hated the cupcake games. Man, I would turn red in the face, angry talking about it. We need to play really good talent. And the older I get, the more I understand the value of playing the easier games at the beginning, playing against a team that may not be as talented as you are, but they're a different team. They're still not on you. Even when you're playing against your teammates and you're really competitive, you're still playing against your teammates. Playing against someone on a Saturday who can't stand you, they're not your teammate. And even though they may be subpar compared to the talent that you're playing against, you still don't know their tendencies. That is good. You can get your timing down, you can get your assignments down, you can get the rust off, and then you go and you play the good games, the games that we all care about. Okay? The Clemson and Florida State. You have the Tennessee and Florida playing one another. Notre Dame, Ohio State. You get those games under your belt so that hopefully you're seeing the best out of both ball clubs. And that's where we're at this point in the season going into week 5. So I'm just going to quickly go over some of the games to pay attention to this coming week and give a little commentary on it. Now, as I said earlier, this Friday at 9 o'clock on FS1, Utah will play at Corvallis. They're playing at Oregon State. Oregon State just dropped a game to Washington State this past week by 3 points, 38-35. This game has a lot riding on it. Utah can prove that they are still one of the teams, if not the team, to beat in the Pac-12 or what's left of it. Which, by the way, how sad is it that the very year that the Pac-12 is going to play their last year as a conference, this is when you're seeing all this talent comes out. I mean, this is crazy. It's sad and funny at the same time. But Utah playing at Oregon State. There's a lot riding on that game for Utah. Utah squeaked out a win against UCLA this past weekend. No Cam Rising. 14-7. That's something else. But that game's going to be Friday. The eyes of the nation, if you just care about college football, will be interested in watch that game. What about Louisville and NC State? You know, compared to other years, Louisville is, I mean, man, they're doing pretty well. This is first-year head coach Brian Brohm. You know, he goes back to his alma mater. And I mean, he's got them fired up. And you just have to ask yourself, you know, is he turning around the program that fast? Now, I'm not saying that Satterfield left him some type of mess. Okay, I'm not saying that whatsoever. But what I am saying is to see him turn this team as quick as he has done it. I mean, it's something you got to pay attention to. They're 4-0. They're 2-0 in the conference. NC State is 3-1. They lost to Notre Dame. But listen to this stat. This is crazy. And I know Louisville, I'll go ahead and throw this out there. Louisville has played Georgia Tech. They played Murray State. They played Indiana. And they've played Boston College, which, by the way, they murdered Boston College. Boston College still hung over from barely losing to Florida State. But listen to this stat, and this is worth paying attention to. Louisville is averaging 542 offensive yards per game. You heard me right, folks. That's impressive. So the road is only going to get tougher. So it's important that you win these games against like NC State. You'll garner a lot more respect from other people. But that's interesting. NC State is going to give them a fight. I will tell you that. Got some people in here. Hello to everyone. I'm glad you're here. Florida at Kentucky. They'll play this weekend. Well, let's go to this game. Southern Cal at Colorado. Now, I've made some comments about Deion Sanders, and I'm not going to defend my comments. Me and Deion have two different approaches to life. That's and I know somebody's going to come on here and you're going to say, well, he's been way more successful than you, and you could learn to take a ton of pages out of his book. Okay, I get that. I understand that. I'm a nobody in his bonus room. But to see him get these players so flippin' hyped up over beating a barren TCU team, it's good. It's good he won. It's good. All right. That's good. He got them to win that game. Now, I don't like this whole thing of, well, he beat the team that was just in the national championship. Yeah, the team that was just in the national championship who lost by 58 points, and the players that they had on their team that were really good, a lot of them are gone. Their offensive coordinator is gone. You're not playing the same team. It sounds good for a commercial. It sounds good for a talking point on a Saturday morning on game day. But reality says something very different. Reality said he beat an okay TCU team who took him down to the wire. Well, that's good. Good for him, good for his team. The very next week, beat Matt Rhule, first-year head coach at Nebraska, trying to fix a mess there. Jay Norvell insults him about not taking off his hat and that whole thing, which I thought Jay Norvell shouldn't have said that. There's other ways to get your guys fired up. You don't have to say that. But the first good team they play, they don't even stick with them. Vegas had Oregon as a 21-point favorite. And I thought in my heart of hearts, I said, you know what? Colorado has the talent on this team to be more competitive than that. Maybe my lack of admiration for Deion's ways. Deion was a great football player. He's one of the best athletes ever, in my opinion. The guy's incredible. But this getting these guys too psyched up, and you've got Tom Brady talking to his son about why you have a Rolls Royce, and you need to stop worrying about the car, and you need to stay in the film room, and that's plastered everywhere. I'm watching, trying to watch the Clemson game, and I see a Kentucky Fried Chicken sponsorship by Deion. That's great. That's wonderful. Wonderful. But the only reason anyone cares is because you're at Colorado and they had been winning, and you play your very first real team. And I thought, even though I don't agree with a lot of your tactics, I thought that you would be competitive. Dan Lanning called the dogs off. He could have ran the score up into the 60s if he wanted to. And now you're going to play Southern Cal. Southern Cal is a transfer-heavy team as well. The reason they have a Heisman Trophy quarterback is the transfer portal. The reason they turned things around last year so fast is because Lincoln Riley said, look, I was hired to do one job, and that was win games. And that's how they did what they did, and they turned around things really fast. But I'll tell you straight up, folks. I honestly, I feel sorry for the players at Colorado, because they got all pumped up. Yes, you're a way better football team than what you have been for the past 20 years. And by the way, it didn't take that much, but it's worked. But whether Travis Hunter played or not this past week, maybe that would have shaved it down to a 21-point loss instead of a 36-point loss where the dogs were called off. I feel sorry for those players, because I can tell you right now, the emotional roller coaster that just happened to them, it's not really fair to them. And they were set up, by the way. They were set up, and I honestly, my heart goes out to them. Of course, they're going to take up for their coach. I'm the bad guy. He's the good guy. Of course, that's wonderful. Once again, I don't have anything like personal against Deion. I just don't agree with his style. And I had people come in, and I'm going to say this last thing, and then I'm moving on. By the way, I think Southern Cal's going to beat them. Just big shocker, I know. Southern Cal's going to beat them. That'll be loss number 2 in a row. Hopefully they'll play much better. Because, if they get, and by the way, you know what the line is right now? Southern Cal at Colorado is a 21.5-point favorite. So what happened if they get shellacked again? But anyway, I just have a different personality, I guess. Southern Cal, Colorado, 12 o'clock on Fox, I do believe, this coming Saturday. So I believe the Trojans are going to win that ball game. Talked about Georgia and Auburn. That'll be an interesting game. It's 3:30 CBS. It sounds good on paper. Georgia's going to win the game. Hugh Freeze in the next few years might turn the tables on that one, to where you go, oh no, you're playing Auburn. That will be a very interesting matchup. Now, the Oregon Ducks coming off that massive, dominating win, plays a nobody team that plays Stanford this week. But the next game to pay attention to is Notre Dame at Duke. Now, I want you to think about this. You just had this massive game televised on NBC. NBC does a great production when it comes to televising games. I'm glad that they're stepping on into the world of college football, into the waters of college football. I'm glad they're doing that. I'm glad that we're seeing more out of them. It's awesome. They do a great production. You can tell the difference when they produce a game. I really like it. Their angles, their just everything. The schematic, it looks great. So I'm glad they're doing that. But this week's going to be different. They're going to go to Durham, North Carolina, and Clemson's already had to do this, by the way. Now, I'm not predicting that Duke is going to do to Notre Dame what Duke did to Clemson, which, by the way, they didn't stop Clemson. Clemson rushed for 200. They passed for 200. They had 12 more first downs than Duke. They only had one penalty for 5 yards. Clemson had the ball 10 or 11 minutes longer from what I can remember right off the top of my head than Duke. Duke won by 3 touchdowns. Why? We know why. Turnovers. Missed opportunity. And what did Duke do? They turned around and capitalized. It's a novel thought. But you go out of this really high-intensity environment playing against Ohio State. You lose on the last play, and now you have to go to Duke where there's, they upgraded the facility to where instead of 33,000, there's now like 40 or 41,000, something like that seats. Ooh. That's a trap. That's a trap game. If there's ever been a trap game, it's this one. It's going to be 7:30 on ABC. And if you want to know the line at this point, Duke is only a 5.5 point favorite. Not Duke. Notre Dame is a 5.5 point favorite over Duke. Notre Dame is a 5.5 point favorite at Duke. It's crazy. And if I'm Duke right now, I'll tell you exactly what I want. If I am Duke right now, I want to win this game to tell everybody that win against Clemson was not a fluke. It wasn't because Clemson was just turning over the ball because they were not capitalizing. It was not, no. Duke football for the first time, maybe ever. This could be their chance to be the best Duke football team ever. And they have a tough schedule. They got to play Florida State. They didn't have to play Florida State last year. They didn't have to play Notre Dame last year. They didn't have to play Clemson last year. And that's a valid point. But you've already beat your first giant you had to play. You beat them. The guys who's on the conference for a while now. You beat them. You beat Notre Dame. That's a big deal. And going into that anticlimactic environment, that's going to be something. I can tell you this. That's going to be absolutely something. I'm going to say hello to a few people in here. By the way, I have 49 people watching right now. If you haven't hit the thumbs up, please hit the thumbs up. Also, subscribe. That's the easiest way to support the channel. It's free. Just click the button. Boom, there it is. Also, if you want to support on a monthly basis, you can do it for either $3 or $5 per month. It's easy. You won't even notice that. And also, I want to mention the sponsor for my channel. The link should be below the description. 4puttcarts.com. 4puttcarts.com is a beverage service for golf courses and special events. So even if you have cart service at your golf course, you have a tournament coming up, you need to call or get in contact with 4Putt Carts. Why? Because you're going to probably be overwhelmed. They do a great job. Also, if you don't have cart service, you're wanting to spice some things up, you need to talk to them. Why? Because nobody wants to be on number 4 going, man, I'm thirsty, I'm hungry, I'm blah, blah, blah. Oh, here's the cart. Wow. Yes, I'm happy now. You do that, or also special events. It's a great time to step up your special events game. Get in touch with 4Putt Carts, 4puttcarts.com. The link should be below the description. Or you can reach out to me and I'll forward your information to them. Thank you for being a sponsor to the show. I want to say hello to a few people. Go through here really quick. Jake from State Farm's in here. Haha. Lester says I already hit the thumbs up. Insane Mob said hit the like button. Oklahoma defense is ranked third. Offense is ranked third. Offense is ranked fourth. Have Bianca Ford. Thank you, Bianca, for getting in here. Your thoughts on OU. I will get to them in just a moment. SC looked bad last week. Down but not out. Go Tigers. Yep. That has something to do with it. Touchdown. Yes, Deion Sanders Aflac commercial. Got Stetson Bennett the fourth in here. Bobby Taters got a big game this week. That's right. The Taters do. I like Miami just flying under the radar and nobody paying them attention. Let me tell you this, Slim Shady Canes. If I am them right now and I'm trying to get my footing under me, this is exactly where I want to be. If I'm Cristobal, I'm like, y'all go keep paying attention to Deion out there. Go out there, put as many cameras in front of him and his bodyguards as he walks in. Please go out there, pay attention to him. We're just going to sit out here, stay quiet, and just win. At the end of the day, that's all people want. Assassin's in here. As I said, Parker Henderson's in here. Donald Walker, Jonathan Benton, everybody, thanks for hopping in here. Once again, if you have not subscribed to the channel yet, please do so because it is free. It is free, my friends. I just really do appreciate it. Tiger Man, thank you. $2 Beer Monday. Really, I didn't know about this. Well, thank you so much. Just bought me a beer. Thank you. $2. Thank you, Tiger Man, for supporting the channel with a super thanks. Anyone who wants to support with a super thanks, you can do that as well. Thank you so much, Tiger Man. I do appreciate the support of the channel. Now, who else is playing this week? Who else has something to gain? Who else has something to prove? Now, Alabama's going to play Mississippi State this week. Mississippi State just lost. They've lost what? LSU. They just lost South Carolina. Alabama changed quarterbacks. They changed back. They beat Lane. If there was any time that you wanted to get Alabama off kilter, you wanted to get them wobbly, this would be the time. Saban switched back to quarterbacks. He went back to Milroe. Won the ball game. That's a big deal, folks. That's one thing I admire about Saban. Saban realizes his first priority, first responsibility, the only reason that he is praised at Alabama is to do something called win. And by the way, you're also expected to keep your players out of jail and they graduate. That's the expectation. That's like the old Chris Rock bit on having children. I feed my kids. Yeah, you're supposed to. That's like a Duff actor. I don't hit my kids. Yeah, you don't supposed to. Well, I've raised them up to be good human beings. Yeah, you're supposed to do all of that. If you are a college football coach, that's what you're supposed to do. Because if they're dishing out, you know what? Better way to phrase this is a question. Why should I pay you a ton of money if you're not an expert? When you start seeing coaches backpedaling and start talking about graduation rate and they're talking about, well, at least we're, nobody's getting in trouble, your program's in trouble. I'm going to talk about Oklahoma. They play Iowa State this week. They're 4-0. And our old buddy Brent Venables is out there. He's doing his thing. He's just out there doing his thing. And Bianca, you're in here. Hopefully this answers a question for you. This team is growing. I think that a lot of people looked at what happened to Brent Venables last year with that team. And all you can think about is that massive loss to Texas in the Red River Classic. That's it. You're like, oh my goodness, what happened there? So they got blown out of that game. Their next worst loss was, I believe, TCU. After that loss, do you realize that they averaged losing by like only 7 or 3 points the rest of the season? And right now he's averaging 506 yards total offense per game. Dylan Gabriel, the transfer, came in last year. I think this is his last year. He's thrown for 1,227 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 1 interception. That's pretty doggone good numbers. And they're playing a 2-2 Iowa State team in Norman, and Oklahoma is a 20-point favorite. And this is how you want to set up things if you're Oklahoma. Because you play this week against Iowa State, and then next week, according to what goes on in the polls, this could be a top 10 matchup with Texas. Because, that game's next week at 12 o'clock ABC. Is Brent Venables working towards revenge? Is he working towards erasing everyone's memory of 2022? I say he is. They still have a lot more to prove to me. You can't look forward to Texas and blow it against an Iowa State team that's meh. You can't do that. And I'll go over my criteria for teams who are coming back and reestablishing themselves. The criteria is you must be consistent. And part of that consistency is you have to win the games you're supposed to, win some of the games you don't supposed to be in. And then the games where you're supposed to get hammered, you're supposed to play solid in it. You see low to no turnovers. If it's working, don't fix it. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Sound familiar? You go out there, you execute. It's easier to recruit. It's easier to make that pitch to the transfer portal recruits. Hey, if I would have had a star running back, we would have won those 2 ball games. And imagine saying that to a transfer portal running back that's really, really talented, but maybe you sat on the bench behind somebody. Or maybe he's just tired of the program. That pitch works when you can say, look, see that game right there? I'm telling you, folks, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. This is a big game for Oklahoma. Oklahoma's kind of quietly doing this as well. You're hearing a little more about them than you are Miami. But Miami and Oklahoma are kind of flying under the radar because everybody has been talking about Colorado. Everybody's been talking about Texas and them dethroning Alabama. Alabama has not been dethroned, folks. That's 1 loss. I know they are not near as dominant as what we all think, but you and I both know that as long as Nick Saban is sucking wind, he'll fire everybody on that coaching staff, go hire a bunch of geniuses. He'll be right back in the national championship, and you're like, dude, you should be dead now. Like, what's happening? Just saying. That's what's going to happen. All right, I just turned on my comments. And going through here real quick. Michael Fornbacher. Michael, dude. Bobby needs to be the next Clemson head coach, not even going to lie. Hey, you know what I would do? I'm not kidding. First of all, thank you for your $20. You shouldn't have done that, bro. I really appreciate that. I really, really do appreciate that. Like, you're a massive supporter. Everybody, Michael Fornbacher is is just dedicated to the channel. And Michael, I appreciate it. I really do appreciate it. And I'm going to tell you exactly what I would do if I was made the head coach of Clemson this week. I would walk in, and by the way, thank you again, man. That's overly generous. Love the hat, by the way. I'm going to get to the other comments, but I'm going to respond to this because a lot of people says, well, what would you do if you would? Let me tell you what you do. I've read this in multiple business books by brilliant men who's made billions. They scoff at millions. They've made billions. But if you study billionaires who just want to get the job done, you know what they tell you? Go hire the best people possible. And that's the reason I knew that Clemson was in trouble. I know that they just made the hire of Garrett Riley, but I'm just telling you, he's got a bunch of inexperienced position coaches under him. I can't say that we have the best defensive coordinator in the country. I can't say he's bad. He's not bad. Wes Goodwin's not bad at all. But he has had a lot of talent. My first day will walk in and say, you're on audition till the end of this season. At the end of this season, I'm telling you straight up, I'm going after. I'd keep it in-house too. I'll go after whoever I have to get. I will take a pay cut to get who I need to get in here to restore dominance at Clemson. And I may not be able to scheme myself out of a wet paper sack, but the guys I hire, they will. That's how you win. What's up, Still Gamble? It's good to see you in here. Insane Mob, does OU get revenge on Texas? At this point, they stand a good chance. Now, if they go blow it against Iowa State, I'll back up that comment. I'll be like, I'll step away from it. Double-edged sword, Bobby. I'm high on Oklahoma to win the Big 12 because, remember, Dylan was hurt major part of the season. They took Florida State to the wire last year. Yeah, Dylan, he was, excuse me, Brent Venables was having to basically play with an empty cupboard. And the people that he had brought on and he had retained, I mean, he was just trying to make do, man. Jay Melvin says, as a UNC fan, I love not being talked about. UNC's doing much better than what I thought. They still have a lot of season ahead of them. Do you hire a staff that's all in for the program or the top of the list at coaching the team? Is there a distinction between the two? Do you hire a staff that's all in for the program or the top of the list at coaching the team? Is there a distinction between the two? Okay, we have to accept this. I'm not going, if I were making the hiring decisions tomorrow, to answer your question, I have to accept that the person that I'm bringing in probably has aspirations to be a head coach. That never scared Nick Saban. Do you think that Nick Saban was shocked when Lane Kiffin bolted for his first job or Sark took a job? No, he wasn't. He knows these men are ambitious. Therefore, he needs ambitious men to coach for him. He needs men who has an ultimate goal of being the best coach, the guy to take his place. He needs them. Do you understand? He needs them bad. Still Gamble, I'm getting to you in just a second. So I want people who realize if I do really well in this job and I make this team successful, other schools are going to come to me and say, hey, you gave that team the best defense in the country. You gave that team the best offense in the country. You took a quarterback who was good and turned him into a Heisman Trophy candidate or winner. You outcoached yourself and got to the playoffs. That's who I want. Let Dabo build some continuity with these coaches and let Cade keep developing like he is, and we'll be great moving forward. Cade is fantastic. And thank you for supporting the channel, Still Gamble. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for the $5. It means a lot. You've been a great supporter, and you've subscribed to the channel. Or not subscribed. You have subscribed, but you've also joined the Not Bobby Durkins channel membership, and I appreciate that. I agree to a point, but I ask this, and I'm serious here. I'm not being snarky. At what point in this season would you draw the line and say, no, we can't let him build continuity with him because we maybe dropped? I think we're going to drop a few more games, at least. I think 2 more games. Notre Dame game, I believe we're going to lose that game, unfortunately. And we're going to lose at least 1 more. But what happens if he drops 3? Do you let them build continuity with these coaches? Now, I agree with letting Cade keep developing. Can you believe how good Cade is? Cade is incredible. I have 2 camps who comes after me. 2 camps says, listen, Cade is trash. And I'm like, you're crazy. Cade's the most ill-prepared quarterback by his coaching staff ever. Versus Taj Boyd and all those guys who sat behind someone who was worked into the system, then handed the keys to the car. Cade only had his 5th start this past week against Florida State. You realize that, folks. Then on the other side, I have people going, hey, you should stop. You got to stop taking up for Cade. You're making excuses. Yeah. And that's it right there. That was the issue with last year and the beginning of this year. Yes, absolutely. But I agree. I believe Cade, yes, Cade has made some mistakes, but those mistakes has been based out of inexperience. But he came out, he balled this past week, folks. So I'm just saying, the guy's got talent. He has a lot of talent. And he has been ill-prepared by his coaches. Let's go on in here, and I'm going to move a little faster. Oklahoma, definitely. UNC playing Syracuse. So they're off this week. Clemson plays at Syracuse this weekend. North Carolina plays at Syracuse next weekend. Maybe Syracuse is... Maybe they just lost a close game with Clemson. They felt like they should have won. I don't think Syracuse will beat Clemson, folks. I could be wrong. Won't be the first time. North Carolina has momentum, and they believe in it. They believe in what's going on. So this weekend, Miami, I'm going to bring up Slim Shady Kane's team. They're 4-0. They're going to play Georgia Tech. Now, Georgia Tech is not a great football team, but they're working hard in Atlanta. In between doing their engineering homework, they practice football some. The Canes are going to lock this one up. And I'm going to tell you this, Miami, if you somehow drop this game, you should be ashamed. You should win this game, go 5-0, move up a couple of spots in the top 25, and just quietly do it. Just quietly do it. Hey, I'll go back out there and watch Texas. Oh, yeah, pay attention to Texas. Don't pay attention to us right now. Before you know, you blink and they're in the top 10. They're a top 7 team. Mentioned this earlier, Oregon State and Utah this Friday. That'll be a big game. Tennessee and South Carolina. Tennessee got absolutely demolished last year. Now, I've shared with you that my oldest is a Gamecock fan. His grandfather, who was a good friend of mine, is a Gamecock fan too. I've told him, I said, you're too nice to be a Gamecock. But now my oldest, his very first game to ever see South Carolina play was at Williams-Brice Stadium last year. He went down to the game with my brother-in-law, who was a Tennessee grad, driving down 26, or riding down 26. He asked my brother-in-law, he said, what chance do we have to win this game tonight? Remember, Tennessee is one of the hottest teams in America at this time. My brother-in-law says little to none. In fact, no chance. We know what South Carolina did to them. My son's next game he went to for South Carolina, he went with me to the South Carolina Clemson game. He's only been to 2 South Carolina games. Every game my son goes to, South Carolina wins. And it's big games. It's not against Doo-Doo State or the Blind Children of Idaho. But I told him, I said, let me tell you, when they go to Knoxville next year, that game's going to be circle with a giant X on it. The only thing that I can think of here is if Joe Milton doesn't play up to things. Spencer Rattler's playing his butt off. Now, I didn't see his numbers. I'll admit, I didn't see his numbers from this Saturday. But you talking about a guy, he got sacked 9 times against North Carolina and didn't get up throwing the ball down like, man, I can't do. No, just kept balling. Just kept balling. Gamecock or not, that's impressive. Much respect to that young man. He's going to come in and he's going to ball. It'll be interesting to see if Tennessee gets their revenge. Florida and Kentucky plays this weekend. It's really, really weird. I really don't know why Devin Leary went up there. It doesn't make sense to me. But it's interesting to see Florida play in Kentucky, 12 o'clock on ESPN this week. Interestingly enough, and by the way, I said that. I don't know why he went there. He has over 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns. He does have 5 interceptions, though. But Kentucky's undefeated. I'm not impressed with who they've beat. Ball State, Eastern Kentucky, Akron, Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt scored 28 points on them, so that should tell you something. But you still have to show some respect that they are 4-0. And also the line is Kentucky is a 2.5-point favorite. Now, that basically means a toss-up in the betting world. But that's like a key indicator to folks. It's not out of the realm of possibility that Kentucky wins this ball game. Now, if I'm Florida and I'm Billy Napier, you just had that win against Tennessee 2 weeks ago. You just beat a no-name Charlotte team, but you only beat them 22-7. What happened there? That's Charlotte, guys. The 49ers. You play Kentucky, you play Vanderbilt, then things get tough. You play South Carolina. Spencer Rattler and Xavier Legette is going to give him a handful. And then they got to play Georgia. They get Arkansas, who is then LSU, Missouri, and finish off with Florida State. Napier has to win these ball games right now. He has to beat Kentucky. He has to beat Vanderbilt. He has to beat South Carolina and Arkansas because he knows when it gets to those other games, Missouri's playing very inspired football. I'm not sold on them. They have tons to prove. But I think you understand. I think you smell what the Rock's cooking here. And that's it. So there's a lot at stake for Florida right now. Let me rephrase that. There's a lot at stake for Billy Napier because he drops a game to Kentucky. Do you really have faith that he's not going to drop a game to South Carolina? Shane Beamer has them playing hard. You know I can't stand the Gamecocks. I'm a massive Clemson fan. But I also tell the truth about talent. I also tell the truth about the ability of a coach to coach his team and inspire his players. Shane Beamer is that guy. They are playing hard in every flipping game they play in. Can Florida? Can Florida allow a loss to Kentucky to happen? I don't think so. You know it and I know it. Michael, another $5, dude. I don't know what you're doing out there in Las Vegas, and I don't want to know, but I appreciate you helping the channel. I really do appreciate it. I got this hat from a friend who was an Ohio State fan for Clemson. I hope that when they gave you that hat, that they didn't bring up the last time we met them. And of course, they're always going to bring up that fumble on the sidelines. They're always going to bring up the fumble. Always. Thank you for supporting the channel. Love the hat. At least you can be cordial with your Ohio State fan. Thank you. Have 64 people in here. Hey, if you haven't subscribed, that's the easiest way to support the channel, and it's free of charge. So all you have to do, you hold your device, hit the subscribe button, boom, you just help the channel for nothing. Okay? I appreciate that. Also, if you want to support the channel on a monthly basis, I have a membership. You can join. The button is below this screen, $3 or $5 per month. And if you're on an iPhone, you probably don't see that, so you can do that on another device. I do appreciate it. I have a lot of subscribers who are becoming members, and I do appreciate it. Remember, I'm just some dude in his bonus room talking about football because I love it. Mike Dishaw, thoughts that Dabo might be the problem, that maybe it was his assistants that made Clemson a great team that have moved on. Dabo and his what seems to be meddling in both offense and defensive plays. Okay. First of all, thanks for being on the show. You said you're a Syracuse fan that loves the channel. Thank you. I appreciate. I really do appreciate it. Jamie Stone, I haven't seen you in here in a while, Jamie. I guess we've been missing each other. Hey, buddy, I vote you for next defensive coach for the Tigers. Yeah, if it's working, and I see my quarterbacks, the opposing quarterback, he's stumbling. He doesn't even know where he's at. I'm not going to drop back in coverage and let him recollect himself. No, I'm going to send the house and risk him hitting a big play and absolutely drill him. I'm not going to try to hurt him. I'm just going to let physics do its thing. They hit him, finish him off, and the ball game's over. Going back to Mike. Okay, so here's what I think about Sweeney. Sweeney, when he took over the job, that very first day, he fired Rob Spence, an offensive coordinator who had been around the game for many, many years. A lot of people called him the evil or the evil scientist or evil genius or whatever. But all his plays looked the same. And it was screens. I remember poor Ty Hill almost lost his life against Virginia Tech in the Valley. I was there. They were playing Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor was the quarterback for Virginia Tech, though. That gives you a time frame. And so he fired him day one. After a few years, he fired Billy Napier. We know that he fired Kevin Steele, the now Alabama defensive coordinator, for a second time around, I believe, after West Virginia. Sweeney was doing what I talked about earlier. He realized he didn't have to be the X's and O's guys. He was entrusted with the team to make the proper personnel hire. So he got Chad Morris at the time. He was up and coming, but there was something different about him. And then when he left, you have to remember, a lot of people forget this about Jeff Scott, that he was a high school coach in Columbia, South Carolina. I think it was Columbia, at Blythewood. The very first year, and correct me if I'm wrong, that Blythewood played organized football. They were 7-on-7. They went to the standard 11 on the field. Jeff Scott was their head football coach. And if my memory serves me correct, their very first year playing organized 11-on-11 football, they won the state championship. Jeff Scott can coach. And he and Tony somehow mellowed each other out or worked very well together. Everybody talks about Tony was actually the one calling the plays and that Jeff wasn't calling the plays, and then an argument about Jeff being the man is actually null and void. It was actually Tony. Will you tell me what happened after Jeff left? It didn't go so well, did it? No, it didn't. That's the proper answer. He hired Brent Venables, went out, got the very best. And we saw what happened there. So what I think is that Sweeney has changed his philosophy. And imagine that. Imagine being a man making $11 million a year. That's incredible. I admire him for that. You have 6 playoffs, consecutive playoffs. Your 2 national championships comes from beating the man. Can you imagine what that would do to you? Can you imagine how you would feel like a license to maybe start doing things that didn't get you successful? Didn't give you success? I could see that. To offer some grace and understanding to the man. I could see it. And all of us could say, oh, no, that would never happen. And yes, it would. Maybe it would, maybe not. But the way Mike, I'm going to say this to you, but I'm saying this to everybody. Dabo Swinney is the best thing that ever happened to Clemson football. But the way he used to do things is not the way he's doing it now. And the way he used to do things was find the best person and hire them. That's why when Chad Morris took over, you saw an instant transformation immediately. And some could argue that maybe that's because the offense was so boring anyway. I mean, you wouldn't have to do much to fix this or fix that. Yeah, but Swinney still went out and hired him. Swinney still went out and hired Brent Venables. So I just want to throw this. Out there to you, and I want to throw this out to anyone. How Swinney got to winning is not the same way that he's operating now. Now, he did go out and get Garrett Riley, but under Garrett Riley is two high school football coaches, two players that played in the NFL that's former Clemson players that I know of, never had coaching experience. Thomas Austin, who did play at Clemson, had 2 years at Georgia State. Folks, listen, I'm not being a jerk here. I'm just saying none of this makes sense. And Swinney could literally make a phone call and have any coach he wants between money and that Clemson still has pull. So I think that procedurally he's changed. And all he would have to do is just go, I'm tired of this. I'm going to find the best defensive coordinator, whether it's in the NFL or whether it's here in college football. That's what I meant by here. I'm sorry. That was very inspecific. And that's who I go after. That's who I would go after. So Swinney, and I'm telling you, Swinney is a competitor, but I can't imagine. I think the success, I don't want to say has went to his head. I'm just saying that I think that he has had some liberties. He's like, hey man, I have a license to do whatever I want to. I have 2 national championships. I coached 2 of the most well-known college football players in recent years at quarterback. One of the greatest phenoms to ever play college football at quarterback played at Clemson within the past few years. And so, and I'll throw this out there as well. I saw a question from Jamie Stone. This is a great question. Who's West's replacement right now if he had to? I'm going to tell you the truth. I don't know. But Swinney and Saban and the upper echelon of coaches, they know who the best defensive coordinators are. Who are they? They know. And that's who they should go after. And listen to me, not only coordinators, you have to have position coaches. They have to. You just can't say, hey, we got this new offensive coordinator, but we're not going to address that there's 2 high school coaches on the offensive side of the ball, that we have 2 former players who played in the NFL who's never coached before coaching. And then we have a guy who was at Georgia State for 2 years, and that's all of the experience that he has. And he's a former player. You can't say that, folks. You can't do that. You can't do that to Garrett Riley and say, hey, man, hey, trot him out at Little John. He does that thing, waves, got his wife and kids. They're all giggling. People are like, and still have those coaches. A championship football team has to have championship coaching at every position, at every level. Not just anybody can be a grad assistant either. That's why it's tough to win championships. And that's why you can't just throw anyone in those roles. You can't. You can't. And I have 76 people in here. I hope you've hit the thumbs up. I hope you've hit subscribe. It's free. It's Also, if you want to support the channel on a monthly basis, $3 or $5 per month, there's a join button below the window or below the video. Unless you're on an iPhone, you might not see it there. Also, a super thanks here if you want to support the channel and like what I'm doing. And I know this is kind of turning into Clemson talk here, and I'm going to shut it down. I mean, but obviously, I've got the Clemson flag. I got this. Y'all can't even see this. I've got a helmet back behind me. This helmet is always behind me. It's just, I'm covering it up. But folks, here's the point, folks. It's okay to give one coach, maybe, a chance at his first coaching job, position. Okay? You might be able to give one of them a chance. But when you look on the offensive side of the ball and you see first year coach, two former high school coaches, folks, listen to me. You can't do that. That would be like Georgia looking at the recruiting, and then they have a meeting. Kirby Smart calls a meeting one day. Just stick with me right here. Just please stick with me. If you just joined, this would be the worst time for you to cut off, because I think you're really going to appreciate this. Because it really paints the picture of what I believe is went on at Clemson. But imagine Kirby Smart calling a meeting. All his coaches comes in, says shut the door, make sure all the phones are off. We're not going to talk about this outside this room. But today, after surveying our roster and who made us successful, I'm going to make some changes. And they're like, whoa, okay, this is weird. Well, coach, you've won 2 national championships in a row, and you recruit like a crazy man. I mean, you love Georgia. You're Mr. Georgia. Go ahead, coach. Plus, you can fire me, so I better say whatever. But yeah, go ahead, coach. And Kirby Smart says, I got to thinking, Stetson Bennett, out of all these high-profile quarterbacks that we've recruited, Stetson Bennett, a walk-on, a 2-time walk-on, by the way, led us to 2 consecutive national championships. And you know what I believe in my grandioso 2 championship in a row mind has come to the conclusion. They're like, what, coach? We're going to stop recruiting 5, 4, 3, 2, 1-star quarterbacks. And we're going to go straight to walk-ons to play quarterback at Georgia. Has he been drinking again? Is he having a nervous breakdown? Did his wife leave him? What, coach? Yeah. Yeah, because who made us successful was a walk-on quarterback. That doesn't make sense, does it? And I know Swinney was a walk-on at Alabama. I know that Hunter Renfrow did very well. He was a walk-on at Clemson. I mean, heck, he was an option quarterback at Saco State High School. But just because you might see a couple of people who defies all odds. Did you hear that? Defies all odds. That doesn't mean that and then you were given a chance by Gene Stalling. That doesn't mean that you start filling your coaching positions with that same philosophy, using that same philosophy to fill those coaching positions. That doesn't mean you do that, because why? You're going to have problems. Experience matters, folks. It matters big time. Jay Melvin said, did you see that Drake May left-handed pass? No, I didn't. Stephen Marcus says, Campobello, South Carolina agrees with you. Well, Stephen, I'll tell you, my friend, I'm not too terribly far from you. Slim Shady, Canes, you're right. If money was everything, Texas and Texas A&M would win everything. You're right. Richard Yellowhawk, what do you think about the portal? I'm not I'm not against it. I'm not against the portal. You always have to remember something. Anytime something good is introduced, someone's going to misuse it. Okay? A lot of people blames diabetes on sugar. And I know there's two different types of diabetes and so on, but just let's go with the sugar deal. Do you think that you and I are supposed to be eating cake every day? And if the question is yes, do you not think that that's not going to wear on us and mess us up? It's supposed to be used sparingly. You give somebody a car that's fast, it says 200 miles per hour on the speedometer. Someone is going to misuse that. People, the players and coaches are going, teams, colleges, they're going to misuse something that is totally innocent for someone else to use. We're in the infancy of this, but I am glad to see that players have the ability to leave with the same ability that a coach could mess up a program, get caught with some blonde that worked at the university he's cheating on his wife with, and he just up and leaves. Or maybe in the middle of the night, he gets some contract to go to work for some other school, and he's got all these players that's sitting there. They're going to have to sit out. They won't touch the field for another 2 years if they transfer right now. They don't have to sit out a year. I don't have a problem with their transferring. Jared Verse at Florida State was at Little Old Albany. This guy's now going to be a top 10 draft pick if something doesn't change. He transferred to Florida State. He balled out. He played great. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with a coach going in and filling up holes on his team until he can get recruits in and develop them. But you have to remember, it takes a few years to develop a recruit once he gets into the system. And let's just say you have a pretty doggone good football team, but you need a better offense. If you had 2 more good offensive linemen and maybe one better linebacker, maybe one really good secondary member, you could plug some holes. And instead of wasting the eligibility of these guys while waiting for that recruit who might or might not sign to possibly develop, you can fulfill those needs now. That's how I see it. Now, if you're consistently having to go back to the portal to fix your team, that means you can't recruit well, and that means people doesn't believe in your system. Period. You know it. I know it. All God's children knows it. With that said, if you have holes or voids on your team and you can go to the transfer portal and fill those voids and take advantage of the talent that you do have now, do it. Clemson needed a kicker. And the rebuttal to me is always, hey, Clemson only had 2 or 3 scholarships left, 1 or 2 scholarships left. Once again, not making this personal to this young man and his family, but am I wrong? Please call me out if I am. I don't want to be on here telling a lie. Did they or did they not, being Clemson, give Paul Bear Bryant's great-grandson a scholarship to be a GA in a uniform? So why couldn't that scholarship actually went to a kicker from the portal to where if Gunn didn't work out, you wouldn't have to call up some kid that's about to move to New York who's still enrolled in a master's program who's 7 days ago had a totally different life. And then this past Saturday, he's trucked out onto the field to hit the game-winning field goal against Florida State. That's unfair to him. I'm sorry, I just don't see that. This is... Let me see. I have a couple of questions in here. ACC money ain't enough to keep assistants like the Big Ten and SEC. Clemson has the money to drop it. They can. Let me see. Going in here. Which team is better, Kentucky or South Carolina? I have absolutely no clue. It's a great question. M. Dutchie. Clemson will be ranked inside the top 10 by the end of the year. In what sport? They would literally have to win out. And I beg to God they do. But I don't know. Well, folks, I'm going to close this down. I will have my Clemson-Syracuse preview this week. Talk about the game, talk about their team. But I appreciate you joining me on this. If you haven't subscribed, it's free. And my channel really does appreciate it. I just saw a comment, Daddy-O, I'm sure Gunn Loveloon is in his job to a .com student. How long before he's in the portal? Probably 5 minutes ago. I mean, but at the same time, I mean, you could say, well, most of these kicks were blocked. I don't know. It's a tricky. Clemson's in a very odd place. If you want to support the channel on a monthly basis, $3 or $5, you won't even notice that. There's a join button below the video. Unless you're on an iPhone, you probably won't see it. Also, if you want to donate via the chat, you can do a super thanks. A lot of people, Michael Fornbacher's already done it. Still Gamble's already done it. Tiger Man's already done it. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for doing that. Folks, I will catch you this week. Hey, listen, I know things haven't went well for our Tigers. I know I've been on here spitting fire over this and pissing off a lot of people, even people who are friends with me, which I'm not trying to do that. I'm just saying I want the problem fixed because I love my Tigers. I appreciate these players. I want the old Dabo Swinney back. But I'm still glad it's college football season. Byron Davis says, I guess like everyone says, dump Dabo and it will be better. No, thank you for the $5. I don't want to dump Dabo. Who do you get to replace Dabo? You know, Saban? Urban Meyer? I know people's like Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer is a winner, folks. It's his off the field antics that people don't like. Urban Meyer can coach. Everywhere he goes, he's a winner, except for Jacksonville, and I don't think that was a good job for him. Anyway, and then he had other things going on. But no, I don't want to dump Dabo. I want Dabo just to get back to that look. I hire the best from top to bottom. We win. I go back over here to my 16,000 square foot mansion, and now I'll probably be making $15 million a year. That's what I want. I want Dabo just to go back to that. He's given these guys a chance, and a lot of them are not developing players. Hire your guys. Don't touch the offense or the defense. Let them run it unless they're doing a bad job. And if they're doing a bad job, and that's consistently a bad job, you got to hire someone else. But no, I don't want to dump Dabo. Byron, I do appreciate you supporting the channel. It's a beautiful dog there as well. But thank you for supporting the channel with your $5. I do appreciate it. Folks, I'll catch you next time. Y'all have a good day, and I'll see you later on this week. Go Tigers.